A very good morning, and we're glad you're still with us on Morning at NTV. The hashtag on Twitter is Morning at NTV. The conversation is big today. Why? Because Kenya is going to the polls today. In fact, casting of ballots has already begun. A presidential candidate, William Samoei Ruto, has already cast his vote in Sugoi. That is his home area. And of course, he came in early saying he had to do so because he had promised his people, and he not only has to do it, but also be seen to do it. Now that means, of course, whoever is going to be casting their ballot today should be able to make it to the polling stations. Closing is at 5 p.m., but those that shall be in the lines at that time will be allowed to, well, cast their ballots. It's something that has the region on a little bit of tenterhook, so to speak, because of the history and, of course, the magnitude of Kenya in terms of the economic powerhouse that it is, that whatever happens there, of course, has a bearing on the economies and, of course, the political landscape in other countries, and Uganda inclusive. Just a reminder that Raila Odinga and William Samoei Ruto are the frontrunners in this particular election. However, there are other two candidates, that is George Wajackoyah and David Wahiga. Now, opinion polls have been held across Kenya in the last 1 month that have explicitly put Raila Odinga ahead of the pack, with William Ruto coming up second. But there is also contention on the fact that anything can happen, and of course opinion polls are but just opinion polls. What will happen later today will of course determine who is the next president of Kenya and will be replacing Uhuru Kenyatta. Uhuru Kenyatta himself has already, well, said his goodbyes to staff at State House and, well, as some commentators have said, cemented a legacy as a president who respected the constitution of a country. Now, that's because in many parts in Africa, well, things happen and constitutions are either changed or, well, are played with in so many ways. But the discussion will be widespread, and we shall be, of course, understanding what is at stake for Uganda. Just a reminder that we expect to speak to Justin Wamae, the deputy presidential candidate for the Roots Party. Now, the Roots Party is led by George Wajackoyah, the professor and very eccentric politician who has promised to ensure that marijuana farming is legalized in Kenya so that Kenya can be able to transform itself by selling this very coveted plant across the world. He also says Kenya can sell hyena testicles to China and other countries. Now, according to Mr. Wajackoyah, that has the potential to bring in money for Kenya and to be a major exporter of this particular product. Well, we shall be asking Miss Justina Wamae exactly how that intends to play out as she joins us a little bit later. Bernadette Muyomi, a political observer, will also be joining us live from Nairobi, as well as our very own executive director of the Center for Constitutional Governance here, Dr. Sarah Birete. But here in studio, I'm joined by Dan Rugarama, a chairperson at the Pan-African Movement Uganda. Many thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much, brother.
You come on the backdrop of, well, the whole region is now looking at Kenya. And it's understandable. What is happening is huge. It's been months of waiting, anticipation of what is going to happen. It comes on the backdrop of so many other things happening. The COVID-19 pandemic affecting how we are living our economic times right now. And of course, the fact that much of what happens in Kenya has a ripple down effect on us, has some people saying, well, this must go well. Do you think the election will go well? Because in Africa, the campaigns can go well, the voting can go well, but it comes to accepting the results that have been announced either by the electoral body in any one particular country, or exit polls, for example, can be a bit tricky.
Comrade and our dear viewers, politics globally is something that is high-level engagement and calls for, sometimes is punctuated with a lot of altercations. Those ugly scenes play out sometimes, and Kenya has not been an exception. We've had Kenya, especially the time of the current president and vice president, deputy president, who are outgoing, being referred to ICC because of what was considered to be engineered ethnic cleansing and perpetuating all sorts of atrocities. We are glad that in a way they came out. Now that shows you the level of the political altercation that I'm referring to. And against that background, you get the sense, especially in the face of the fact that here are two contenders who are not small, they are not novices in the political arena. We've had Baba in the political landscape, the political arena of Kenya, a 5 times presidential person that has come to offer himself to the Kenyans. We've had William Ruto in the scene of the Kenyan politics, and they have held previously very powerful positions in the Kenyan politics, and we have been watching the political atmosphere since they announced their intentions to take over the seat of the presidency. Okay. We can only pray that things don't get as ugly as they got the other time, where we even had the entire later on election cancelled by the Maraga court. And at the same time, we hope that this time around there will be conceding of defeat. Because that is also a gentleman's way of doing things. If we don't have a party, because even the polls you are talking about, you can see that there has been that percentage of undecided. Where are they going to fall? If it is too close to call, it can also lead to one party refusing to concede defeat, and we have a replay, the ugly replay of what we witnessed some time back. We hope that doesn't happen.
Okay, many thanks for that opener. Dan Rugarama, the chairperson of the Pan-African Movement. We now do understand that we have Justin Wamai, the deputy presidential candidate for the Roots Party. Of course, the Roots Party being led by George Wajackoyah, the professor and very eccentric politician. Many thanks for joining us, Madam Justina Wamai. A very good morning, and you're coming to us live from Nairobi. Just tell us exactly what the situation is right now. Have you cast your ballot?
No, I haven't. Good morning. I haven't cast my ballot yet. I'll be casting at 11 a.m. today in the morning.
Particular polling station, is it in your home area or is it in the home area of your boss, Professor George Wajackoyah?
I'll be casting in my home area. It's in Machakos County, Mavoko constituency.
Okay.
But my boss is casting in his home area, which is in Kakamega County.
All right. Now, coming into this final election day, the Roots Party has caused a little bit of a furore in the political circles within Kenya, coming off with a strategy that is eccentric, one that hasn't been adopted by many in recent times, but one that also looks, well, realistic. Tell us about exactly what you espouse as a political party.
Roots Party is focusing on economic upswing through legalization and regulation of marijuana for export and local economies. What is different about us is that we are explaining to Kenyans how we are going to fund our government projects without increasing taxes and by paying off the debt, which is actually a challenge in this country. So that is what Roots Party is all about.
Okay, that seems to be a tactic and not a strategy. A tactic within a bigger strategy. Because when you say you have the ability to transform Kenya's economy by looking at legalizing the farming and the export of marijuana, well, it's not only marijuana that a country can export to be able to achieve the kind of economic transformation that you seek. What other aspects are you looking at in terms of achieving that strategic objective?
The strategy, we are also focusing on ensuring that people have a urban to rural migration. We need to use what we have, which is the arable land. So we have to spur up agriculture. But I said in the beginning that our aim is to have an economic upswing by using what we have, which is the land. So we are focusing much on agriculture. We are focusing on snake farming as an alternative agricultural activity, so that people can be creative in a different way in terms of revenue streams. So our idea is people are creative in how we make money as individuals and as a country.
All right, Madam Justina Wamae, stay online. We shall be, of course, interacting a little bit later. Let us welcome on board Dr. Sarah Birete, the Executive Director of the Center for Constitutional Governance here in Uganda, who is one of the observers that are in Nairobi to help monitor and, of course, be able to assess the conduct of the election. A very good morning, Dr. Sarah Birete.
Good morning. How is Kampala?
Kampala is anxious, awaiting a very, well, it's not fever pitch here, but of course we are looking very, very keenly on what is happening in Kenya. How is it? Just give us, take us through how the morning has begun and if at all your monitoring is going as it ought to be.
Well, by yesterday, 90% of polling stations had received the voting materials. Most polling opened on time. There were a few delays, and that's why I'm giving it 10%. But we shall know the actual tabulation of where delays were by 11 o'clock when we shall be releasing the first election statement. But generally, the most polling stations started on time. There were a few incidences last night with the people in a secret meeting, election officials in one area, and then also another incident where polling materials were destroyed. And the third key incident is where also people were arrested allegedly with pre-ticked materials. So those are the three incidences that we gathered that happened last night. But otherwise, the exercise was smooth and we didn't get any reporting in our situation room other than the three key incidences last night. Generally, the process since we arrived here, it's important to note that we had the long-term election observers, our partners, the Election Observer Network of Kenya, ELOG, have observed the elections since January this year. So largely there has been transparency in the electoral exercise. There has been inclusive stakeholder engagements at all levels. The chairperson of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission has been working very well with the civil society organizations, both in Kenya and outside Kenya. A total of 77 observer missions have been accredited, and that's an estimate of about 18,000 election observers in Kenya. The civil society election observer missions are running a parallel voter tabulation, and the Electoral Commission has inspected it and endorsed it. And we shall be releasing our tally immediately after the release of official results to compare and check the credibility of the results in the exercise.
All right.
Also, I have been to the EU mission in Kenya. They also have their data clerks. They've also set up their big election observer mission office. The same applies to the AU and the East African community, but all election observer missions are working without interference. They are moving in the field, covering most parts of the country, and there is transparency when it comes to that process.
All right, thank you very much. For now, we shall be asking you a little bit later for comparisons on how the monitoring exercises go on here in Uganda to see whether there are any aspects that can be either copied or that can be benchmarked, or some that can actually be taken on by our Kenyan counterparts there. Let's now go to the Kenya High Commission here in Kampala, that is in Kololo, where voting is underway, especially for the residents who Kenyan nationals who reside in Uganda at the Kololo-based Kenya High Commission. Our very own Stephen Mbide is there. Stephen, a very good morning.
Yes, good morning to you. Habari za asubuhi Kenya, habari za asubuhi East Africa. This is Kololo at the Kenya High Commission. Of course, I've been here from 6 a.m. I've seen some Kenyan community living in Kampala coming here to search for their names. Behind me is the list, call it the voters register for the people, the Kenyans who are in Kampala. And the register shows that 1,411 registered voters are supposed to be casting their vote from inside this building. But here, I have some gentlemen and lady who are already cast their vote. Some others are just trying to look for their names. Let me begin with him. Good morning to you.
Good morning. My name is Noah Mondi. I'm glad to be here this morning.
Have you been able to cast your vote, or you still just looking for your name?
Exactly, I've been able, and this is an indication that I've already voted. And I want to say that I'm very grateful for this exercise, and I want to appreciate the IEBC for coming in here today and helping us to actually exercise our democratic right. Now, I want to believe that we will not have a recurrence of the previous events in the previous elections, in that we expect the IEBC to walk the talk. We want to make sure that they really walk the credibility and the fairness and the transparency that they've been talking of. Yeah, we know many things have been said. We've had many occasions, many events happening here and there, ballot boxes, ballot papers being mismatched and all that. But we pray and we believe that at the end of the day, things shall be manned up and everything shall really take its real course.
Thank you so much. Let me turn to you. Good morning, what's your name?
My name is Jospat M. Karaoke. I'm happy to be here. And I want to appreciate Uganda for making it more easier. My second home, we made it so easier for us. I casted my vote and I made the right decisions, and I hope on the other home of mine, they're making the right decision as well. I hope we remain peaceful. That's my hope.
Generally, people have been saying that generally the campaigns have been a little bit smooth, no cases of arrests, human rights violations. What do you say about the campaigns, how they've been conducted?
So far, so good. That's all I can say. And I'm hoping as we keep on casting our votes, all will be well. It's my prayer, and that's all I hope for the best. I hope for the best. Yeah, so far, so good.
Thank you. Habari za asubuhi.
Nzuri sana, habari yako. Mimi naitwa Isa Kasera. I'm a Kenyan. I've come here to vote. And so far, to me, what I expect, whoever wins, it doesn't matter who wins, so long as Kenyan people will remain peaceful. But with election, there always comes new leadership, fresh ideas, better relations in terms of foreign policy. And those are the exact thing we are looking for here in Uganda. Being away from home, we would like the next government to be as friendly as possible, as much as possible, with our host government right now. And that's what I'm looking for.
Thank you. And lady.
Habari zenyu wa Kenya wenzangu. My name is Irina Siren Soit, here in the Kenyan High Commission. I'm very delighted today that we are exercising our civic right by casting our votes today. Here we are only entitled to cast for our president, which we've already done. I'd like to say at least we are happy, so far so good, what the IEBC is doing. What I would like to urge my Kenyan community is to vote wisely, maintain peace. Let us be the usual peaceful and loving people. Let us not allow anything divide us. Whichever party wins, we agree and move our nation forward. So nawaomba Wakenya wenzangu tudumisha amani, tuwe wavumilivu wakati huu tunapopiga kura, tukingoja matokeo yale ambayo yatatokea tuyakubali na tuweze kuendelesha nchi yetu mbele. Asanteni sana.
Asante sana, asante sana. Let me also try to get one more person who is trying to look for his or her name here on the voters register. This is at the Kenya High Commission, where Kenyan community living in Uganda trying to search for their names, and then they are able to cast their vote. If I can speak to you, gentlemen. Good morning to you.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Okay, what's your name?
My name is Jonesmas Bithi.
What does this election mean to you as a Kenyan living in Uganda?
It is of importance to us because we've been looking forward to a government that is going to change the life of the Kenyans. They've been suffering for quite a while, so we are looking forward to a government that will bring change in our nation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Let me leave you to look for your name, and then you'll be able to cast your vote. These are some of the people who have already come here. Some of them have been able to cast their vote as early as 6 a.m. from here, and we know that closing the vote, casting of the votes will be at 5 a.m. and then automatically we shall be knowing who tallying will be beginning from 5 p.m. This is at the Kenya High Commission here in Kololo. I have to hand you back to studio because there is much more detail that you need to get from the Kenya election today as the Kenyan decides, as the Kenyan community decide their next president. Stephen Imbido and Fefe Chibuga, I'll be keeping watch here in Kololo.
All right, many thanks, Stephen Mbide. Of course, we shall be returning to you later in the day as we update our viewers and audiences across the globe on developments both here in Uganda and, of course, in Kenya. Allow us now go to the deputy presidential candidate for the Roots Party, Justin Wamai, who is joining us live from her constituency, where she will be casting her ballot a little bit later today. That is at 11 a.m. if my memory is anything to go by. But we are inclined as Ugandans to seek to understand what your foreign policy blueprint is as Roots Party. The East African Community Dispensation needs grounding in terms of creating a single economic bloc that can embolden our bargaining power, especially to the blocs like the European Union, China, United States. What is your foreign policy blueprint as a party heading into this election?
Is that we want Kenyans first to understand what the East Africa community means. The common mwananchi does not understand the benefits of being in the East African community. We are focusing on the one currency. But first you have to sensitize our Kenyan people what it means to be in the East African community. Then we're focusing on harmonizing or streamlining how we interact or how we relate with our neighbors. So first and foremost is that we're going to build up on already the Kenyan policy, which is that everything we engage, basically in summary, is anything Kenya does, we engage it we promote the Kenyan way, but have to have peaceful harmony with our neighbors. But the most important thing is for Kenyans to understand what being in the East African community means, as opposed to them feeling that it is there, but they do not know what it means. So sensitization will be the first step, so that when we are moving into even a single currency, once we agree as a community, Kenyans know the benefits and the advantages of being in that East African community.
All right, thank you very much for that answer. I'll return to the studio and engage Mr. Dan Rugarama, the chairperson of the Pan-African Movement Uganda, and of course, Justin Wamai, the deputy presidential candidate for the Roots Party, as well as Dr. Sarah Birete, the executive director of the Center for Constitutional Governance, are still with us. I'll be returning to you a little later or shortly, so to speak. But you've heard the deputy presidential candidate for the Roots Party speak about what the strategy is in terms of ushering in the kind of economic transformation that they want for Kenya. She has also spoken about the foreign policy. What do you make of her assertion?
There is one important thing which Africa as a continent is yet to realize and get properly. However much we have tried as a continent, we are still suffering under the weight of the conceptual West. What some of the agencies of the conceptual West, such as the Bretton Woods institutions, the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, make sure that the continent of Africa, with our 54 plus countries, actually don't develop a blueprint. You talked about a blueprint. They give us their own blueprint. Does it not strike you as odd that basically we as a continent, collectively and individually as countries within the continent, are still struggling economically? Does it not bother anybody that almost on the African continent, we've been told that our democratic credentials are lacking? Is it not worrying that basically the socio-economic development trajectory of Africa is not homegrown? Because what happens is that we may talk about, for instance, the East African community, very beautiful organization. The aspirations are great. It is not the first time we are having it. We had it before, it collapsed. Now, I'm not saying this one is going to collapse. I'm simply telling our viewers that we are grappling sometimes and to a bigger extent with circumstances that are not brought upon ourselves by ourselves, but externally. Now, when you talk like that, in a majority of the cases, some of these political bandits consider you as somebody who is externalizing problems that you do not want to see, problems emanating from your own country, from your own continent. You appear to say that all problems are imported, exported to you by others. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that,
very quickly,
what I'm saying is that the foreign policy, our individual foreign policy as countries, may not necessarily, will not be achieved. It is not as simple as taking a walk in the park. It will have to take commitment, sacrifice, and very hard decisions from the regional groupings, from the African Union. But coming back to the East African community, I know that all sorts of groupings and communities, organizations of this nature suffer. Britain, which claims to be a top democracy, just ran out of the European Union. That tells you, therefore.
Okay, let's take this to Dr. Sarah Birete, the Executive Director of the Center for Constitutional Governance here in Uganda, who is monitoring the election in Nairobi today. Rugarama Dan appears to be calculatedly pessimistic about the whole aspect of democracy as a concept that is good enough for Africa and can provide the kind of leadership that we want. You are a policy and democracy activist, so to speak, and you are monitoring a democratic process that is going on. Do you think you are doing something that could be, well, largely futile, but more like something you have to do after all?
I know, yeah, my brother Garama has different perspectives of democracy, and we share the Pan-African view, although I am not dismissive of democracy, because the challenge I have with people who are dismissive of democracy as an imported doctrine is that they do not offer any tangible alternatives. And this, especially leaders who tend to be autocratic, are dismissive of democracy as an imported concept, are dismissive of human rights as foreign, as if Africans are not human. I do not share that view. I am a believer in democracy. The problem with Africa is vulgarization of democracy, vulgarization of elections, rigging and manipulation of people's mandates. Democracy itself is not a problem, but the way we practice it is what causes problems. So if we cannot argue to create systems to cure our faults and bad behaviors, what we need is to practice the principles of democracy as enshrined in universal protocols and conventions.
Deputy Presidential Candidate for the Roots Party,
Yes.
Madam Justina Wamai, I'll ask a very pertinent and a very personal question. During the vice presidential debate, you spoke about the fact that people should freely be able to interact and, well, consume marijuana. Do you still hold that view?
Our aim is not to consume of marijuana. Is not our aim. We are not focusing on advocating for cannabis sativa. Remember, marijuana has two species. There is the cannabis sativa and the cannabis, which is industrial hemp.
All right.
So our focus is industrial hemp, not consumption of marijuana.
All right, and how are you playing the tightrope, especially when it comes to public perception? When it comes to selling this particular aspect that you say, industrial hemp, many Kenyans right now might not be able to understand exactly what industrial hemp is and how it will bring in this kind of money. Within your governance structures, do you have what it takes to manage this very ambitious plan?
We are not going to work in isolation. We have institutions like KEFIS, they're in charge of plant health. We have CARI in charge of research. We are going to work with them to ensure that the seed that is on sale, just like there we buy seeds for maize or beans in the shops, is the CBD seed that is available. That is control measure 1, that the CBD seed is the recommended seed for this plant, industrial hemp. We are going to make use of licensing of farmers as another control measure. We are going to bring back the agricultural officers who come around in farms to inspect what Kenyans are doing. So by that, the control measures are there. And that is where when we say we are going to legalize, there's the aspect of regulation, which is the 3 I have noted. So we are not going to work in isolation as Roots Party. We are working with all institutions that are already in place by the Kenyan government to be able to achieve this plan.
No, rather how the other aspect of your tactics for governance will work out. The sale of dog meat to China, as well as hyena privates to consumers who might want that particular product. But allow me ask Dr. Sarah Birete to take us through what the observation process is. Yesterday, we understood that the media had been given explicit permission to be able to conduct tallying of the votes as they come in. I don't know whether you've been taken through this particular aspect, but how does it play out in Africa when exit polls decide who is the president before the Independent and Electoral Boundaries Commission does actually announce who the winner is?
No, yes. So the agreement is that the media should announce their alternate tallies after the Electoral Commission has announced, not before. The same applies to parties. Parties are running their own tallies. So our worry actually as observers is if any presidential candidate calls the election in their favor before the EIBC announcement, and that is likely to create anxiety. So you have a parallel voter tabulation by civil society, fully endorsed by the government of Kenya. You have the parallel tallies or voter tally centers by the presidential candidates. You have the media allowed to tally. They can only announce polling station results because the announcement of results is at a polling station. It is not at the tally center. The National Tally Center is for transmission, tabulation, and official announcement of the overall winner. So the media can announce as they get results from the polling station, but they cannot announce their final tally and who has won the election before the Electoral Commission official announcement.
Isn't
the
that...
same applies to civil society. As much as we are doing a credibility check on the election, we shall release our results after the Electoral Commission has announced their official results.
Now, let me be very specific about this particular process. For example, if you have 10,000 polling stations and results are coming in at around 9 p.m. and a station like NTV Kenya has been able to bring the results for each polling station, and it's evident the tabulation can be done by anybody watching, isn't that very clear who has won and who hasn't? And at that point, can't the presidential candidate announce himself as winner?
Chris, that is exactly the transparency we talk about. And let me compare with the United States elections.
Great.
We all watch the tabulations as they come in. And we all know who has won, even not with the official announcement. That is what transparency in elections mean. And Kenya has tried to walk the talk. And we are proud of them on this milestone.
Okay. All right, thank you. Let's return to Dan Rugarama in studio here to give us his perspective on what is no doubt something that is different in as far as the conduct of elections in Africa is concerned, the media being able to relay the results from polling stations as and when they come in. In effect, whoever is watching is able to tell even before Wafula Chebukati comes and tells us either Mr. Wajakoya or David Wahiga has won the election. People are able to know who has won, and at that time, well, the party can begin.
Frankly speaking, I am happy to have worked with Electoral Commission Uganda for more than 10 years. And I was in direct management of elections.
Okay.
I was in the field and at the head office. So I really deeply appreciate this thing called elections. I'm also happy that
the thing.
My I have been undertaking very advanced studies in election management as my PhD study, and I'm very passionate about this. I would share with the viewers that I appreciate the fact that we need that level of transparency. But elections are a very, very interesting aspect. Sometimes when you have not yet matured to a level whereby you can accommodate certain experiences, it's better to walk there than to run there. And what I mean by that is that the American system, for instance, could be doing that. That as the results come in, right from the polling station, it is projected on the screens and everybody is seeing. But do we have that capacity, for instance, here in Uganda? Or majority of the African countries? I bet even in Uganda, we have not started this, which Kenya is doing, and I'm happy for them, where the Kenyans or Ugandans living away from Uganda can cast their votes, and it will be brought back to the final tally center. So I agree from the democratic point of view and for purposes of intellectual discourse that the media should be allowed to do that job. But the media should also not usurp the powers of the Electoral Commission. You can cause mayhem. You can cause mayhem by announcing. You may not necessarily do it the way Electoral Commission does, but you will find that when every aspect of the way is open and there is nothing left to Electoral Commission to announce, there may be some bits of problem. Although I must hasten to add that in some cases, some of our democracies on the African continent and away also try to hide something in not allowing the media to expose what has been happening on the polling stations, and we give it we make it a preserve of the final returning officer.
Board, yeah.
So if you may allow me conclude on that,
yes,
is that I have a lot of hope in the growing democracy on the African continent. I am very sure that we shall reach and even surpass some of the so-called very advanced democracies. Let me also say that we make a mistake in thinking that election is now, as we are having it in Kenya, or we have had it, for instance, in Uganda. Elections, for that matter, is a whole composite thing that begins way back before the casting of the vote.
All right, let's take it to Madame Justina Wamai. Of course, there is something Ugandans are, well, anxiously waiting to hear how it will roll out. But before I ask that particular question, allow me engage you on the capacity of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to be able to bring in the results as and when they come in from the various polling stations around the country. There have been concerns, some of them raised by Raila Odinga, to the extent that he gave them as reason for not attending the debate, the presidential debate there. Do you think Wafula Chebukati and his team are sufficiently in control and will be able to deliver a credible poll today?
Doing a very good job. Remember, in 2017, IEBC was blamed for the nullification of the election. And like they say, once bitten, twice shy. They do not want to be blamed this time. They have been engaging all presidential candidates and their representatives in everything they are doing. They have been sending letters. We've been having consultation meetings with them. So I feel IEBC has the capacity. I'm happy even the digital network in Kenya, we are now at 4G. So Kenya is doing the strides made in terms of technology, in terms of internet connectivity, is also enabling IEBC to perform their job. As we speak, most Kenyans, let's say like a quarter of Kenyans have voted up to this time, and they are using the electronic, the biometrics, the KIMS kit. They have not referred to any manual register. So I feel IEBC will be able to deliver. And again, this time it's different because once the results are announced at the polling station with the Form 34A1, that is going to be the final result, which will be transmitted to the constituency level. So I feel they are very organized. I feel the internet connectivity and coverage is favoring them. So I believe the elections will be free and fair.
Of course, like I said earlier, anxiously waiting for that answer to the question that I referred to earlier. But before we do that, Sarah Birete, you are watching a system that has been, well, put under pressure by the presidential candidates in terms of how best it can deliver a credible poll. Do you see what is happening in as far as the IEBC, the infrastructure it has rolled out? Do you see it being a benchmark that the Electoral Commission in Uganda can take up?
It is a benchmark, but the question with Uganda is the political will. Do we have a political will to conduct genuine elections, or we are interested in comedy where we arrest opposition, we arrest opposition agents, we tear gas opponents, opposition candidates campaigning bulletproofs? Are we ready for elections as a country? I do not see the political will in Uganda to conduct elections. We are interested in comedy in democracy. We have vulgarized our democracy. We engage in kidnaps for opponents, people who don't support the regime. We engage in torture. We arrest people on voting day. We arrest candidates on nomination day. Really, my call is only to the political leadership. You have embarrassed Uganda enough. Can you give democracy a chance?
Wrap on this because time is not our best ally. Now, allow me go to the deputy presidential candidate for the Roots Party, Justin Wamai, to answer the question how and exactly what is going to happen if you have to sell hyena privates and dog meat. It is a threat to what is no doubt Kenya's greatest export, tourism. If you're going to hunt down hyenas, take us through this.
Okay, our focus is when we talk about the hyena parts and the hyena meat, in South Africa, there's something they did. When the elephants were too many and there was so much human-animal conflict due to overpopulation, it meant the weaker ones would come into the population and terrorize them. It is the same case in Kenya now. Hyenas that are weak are not able to survive in the forest. They are coming into the homesteads, they are destroying animals, they are killing. They can even eat a child if a child is found outside in a homestead. So our idea is to do the culling process. We cull out the weak ones, which are not able to survive, instead of them being killed instead of them killing each other in the wilderness or being killed by human due to animal-human conflict. We cull them out, sell their meat. There's already market. Somalia consumes hyena meat. Morocco does. Saudi Arabia does. China uses their parts and hide and skins and bones as traditional medicine. So we are looking out for a market. Instead of them killing themselves and eradicating themselves, why can't Kenya make use of them in terms of foreign exchange? That is our idea. We are not focusing on eliminating them from the ecosystem. They're very important. Again, the dog meat. There are other markets that consume dog meat. Of course, we'll work with the veterinaries, there's so much expertise to show us how we can breed meat that is for human consumption, because there are markets that are consuming this. So, Chris, our aim is to ensure that
Our apologies for that. A technical glitch there appears to have taken our sound to the dogs, no doubt. The deputy presidential candidate for the Roots Party trying to explain something that is not common within our social settings. I'll allow Dan Rugarama to give me his views on what Justina Wamai says.
You know, I have come to appreciate deeply the agenda of Professor Joka.
All right, just a moment. I understand Justina Wamai is back online and that audio is now clear. Justina Wamai, you're making that final wrap of the point.
Yeah, I was saying our aim as Roots Party, in as much as we are talking about things that are not sounding, things that are sounding foreign, our aim is what is our competitive edge? We want to run a profitable government. We want to run a government that is different from the way we usually do things in terms of taxing people and getting foreign debt. So our aim is to spur up economy through manufacturing, through industrialization, so that our people can be employed. We can be having export markets as opposed to importing up to matchsticks and toothpick. So that is what Roots Party is aiming. We want Kenyans to be creative in terms of revenue, alternative revenue streams. So that is what we're advocating for.
Dismantle the standard gauge railway and, deport all idle foreigners from Kenya.
Why we say this is because we realize our citizenship. We are happy. We are focusing on having everyone on board, but we want to streamline how people come into Kenya. There's so many people who have come to Kenya illegally. They are not known where they've come from. We do not have background checks on them. So when you say that we want them to go home, yes, so that they can come back the right way with the right documentation. About the SGR, our general feeling is that the port was taken to Naivasha, the internal dry port, which has made people in the coast region where there was the port in Nairobi, in Mombasa, people are now unemployed. We feel the SGR was a mistake. So instead of using the SGR as for economy and transportation, we are going to say SGR will be for tourism. Let people who want to go around and enjoy their holiday in Kenya to use the SGR. But for people who are focusing on getting goods from Mombasa to Uganda, for instance, can it be through the road so that we can reclaim our Mombasa port, ensure our people from Mombasa are employed, because we want to ensure that every Kenyan is able to get to feed their family through employment. So SGR is a good idea, but we'll just transform it for purposes of tourism.
All right, there, I think we're going to have to let it be. That is the deputy presidential candidate for the Roots Party in Kenya's presidential election, Justina Wamai, there speaking to us. Of course, just a reminder that Professor George Wajackoyah is the one who is standing for president, and he has made a very eccentric and to some within Kenya ideas that could lead to a little bit of anxiety here and there. But allow me, give Dan Rugarama the opportunity, first and foremost, to ponder on what Justina Wamai says. But most importantly, how do we move forward when there are elements or people who think that some of the infrastructure developments that have been undertaken by Uhuru Kenyatta require complete, disregard, and that they should be, tourist attraction. What do you make of that?
Sometimes, of course, some of these things, we laugh about them. But there's what we call the inside politics.
Yeah.
I want to believe that the Professor Wajackoyah and the team must be having what they actually mean when they say we are going to dismantle or to leave the SG, the standard gauge railway, for purposes of tourism. It would be costly for them to dismantle or just to relegate it for that purpose. But maybe just to say that the most intelligent thing for all political actors to do, we are certainly going to have a winner, is to look at all the manifestos of all the participants.
And then bring together the ideas.
And then bring together the ideas. Because there is nobody who is an absolute custodian of knowledge.
Yeah.
It is very important in any political contestation, because these are political contestations, the winner will emerge, but at the end of the day, they will stay Kenyans.
Yeah.
So in the spirit of the East African community, in the spirit of the African Union, but also most importantly, there is what we call...
I'm afraid, we are out of time. That conversation, of course, can continue on Twitter. And of course, our programming later, we shall be bringing the audience, the results, and everything that is going on in Kenya right now, as and when it happens. Just a reminder, our guests have been Sarah Birete, Executive Director of the Center for Constitutional Governance here in Uganda, who is an observer in Nairobi. We had Justina Wamai, the Deputy Presidential Candidate for the Roots Party, and of course here in studio, like I said earlier, Mr. Dan Rugarama. I'm Chris Higenyi. That will do it for this discussion on Morning at NTV, and a wrap for the program for the day. But of course, you can stay with us. Our reporter Jackson Onyango is in Nairobi, as well as correspondents from our sister station NTV that will be bringing us the details and the updates of what is no doubt a huge event in the region. It's been a pleasure having your company. Have a nice day.